Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2023 show. I'm your host, Don Kay, and we are coming to you from the Green Street Pub and Eatery at 911 North Green Street in Brownsburg. Tonight we're brought to you by the Indy Dental Group. If you need dental work, trust me, it's the place to go. They have 5 offices, so somewhere they'll find an office for you. So call, make an appointment. You can reach them at 317-846-6125. VP Insurance, the answer you need for insurance needs no matter what they are. Call Tom or Mike at 317-248-0070 for VP Insurance. They're located about 1 mile west of the Speedway on 16th Street. They can help you and they get good prices. It's amazing. We're also brought to you by SVRA. If you're into Trans Am racing, it's back bigger than ever. They have that. They have the vintage cars, Indy cars. They have sports cars. They have great programs. You can go to their website, svra.com, check the schedule. If there's anything going on anywhere near you, stop by. You'll be glad you did. That's the svra.com. Check out the schedule. My first guest is a gentleman that I'm sure most of you have heard or seen at one time or another. He is a 6-time winner in INDYCAR Series. He is a 2-time Favorite Driver Award twice. He also found out that the softer barrier is not exactly that soft.
It's all relative, yeah.
Yeah. And strangely enough, the next year he came, was he scared? No, he was on the pole. He's now broadcasting. He's a runner-up in Dancing with the Stars, which I thought was wrong, but nobody asked me, so I didn't get to vote. But you'll see him this coming weekend from Barber. He's one heck of a guy, got a personality. We had a lot of fun. Please welcome James Hinchcliffe. Now, you get to broadcast the races, so you get to be at all of them.
I do.
But when you sit there, do you think, God, I wish I was there instead of here?
Depends on the track. No, look, I think anybody that's done it at any level, any capacity, when you stop doing it, there's things about it that you miss, and there are days that you wish you were back in the car. But I think there are a lot fewer days where that's the feeling than me being perfectly happy in an air-conditioned booth with someone feed me Perrier's. So I'm getting old, man. So it's a different deal now.
And when you first came here, and I had you on the program early on, you were single, just dapper, dancing around. Now you're a married man.
I am a married man.
And does your wife say, stay out of the car?
No, she's very supportive of anything that I decide to do, but at the same time, she definitely sleeps a lot better now that I just talk for a living, which is nice, a little less stressful on her. But no, if I wanted to get back in tomorrow, she'd be fully supportive, at least openly to me. Behind my back, who knows?
Yeah, you'd get in the car and go out on the track, and she'd be hiding under a motorhome someplace probably.
She'd be in the motorhome with a bottle of white wine. But yeah, basically, same thing.
Now, I understand she's an actress.
Yes, that's correct.
Where could we see her?
Well, she...
Other than at your house.
Other than at my house, yeah. She does a lot of kind of like the Hallmark Christmas movie kind of things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if you guys are big Hallmark Christmas movie fans...
There's one right here.
Then you've probably seen her, because she's in a couple a year, the last sort of 4 or 5 years. She's had a really good run with that sort of genre of film, which has been great. She's got a new show coming out on Apple TV in a couple months here. They haven't told us exactly when yet, but she shot that last year, which is pretty exciting. And she's been on, she had her own sitcom up in Canada for a little while, and she's been on, Suits and some of those hospital shows that I'm sure people know that I don't. But yeah, so she's been in a bunch of stuff.
Well, that's good. So in case you get locked out of the booth.
Well, one of us needs a job, right?
That works out.
I'm a kept man. It's great.
The first couple road races, I've noticed sitting watching Peacock, although I was in St. Pete, it seems the starts are a little raggedy, and particularly at Long Beach.
Yeah.
What are they doing up in the booth?
In the commentator booth?
No.
Oh, in race control.
Race control.
Who knows? No. Look, I think St. Pete was unfortunate. I think St. Pete, you can have a very good start there. We've done it in the past, and when you look back on it, there was things we definitely could have done differently to make St. Pete better. I'm not sure why they didn't throw that first one and let us kind of regroup. But Long Beach is tough. Long Beach is really tough because of the hairpin. If you go back and watch old races, every start at Long Beach looks like that. the first 3 rows maybe. I mean, the joke for a long time at Long Beach was you wanted to qualify 7th. Because you qualify 7th, by the time you come out of the hairpin, the first three rows are there, and you're just catching up as the green flag flies. You never have to lift. You've got a 20-mile-an-hour closing ratio, and that's what happened with Pato and Joseph, and Scott got on the radio complaining about it. There's not much race control can do. The other option is you throw the green flag very late, allow a lot of cars to get around, but then the chance of a massive first turn pile up in a 14-lap caution period is way higher. So it's what's better, what's worse, I'd rather see green flag racing.
Yeah, well, that's true. And I think once it got sorted out, I thought Long Beach was one of the better races they've had there in quite some time.
For sure. I mean, and that was even considering the yellow flag flew, that first yellow flew at the worst possible time for the race. It kind of killed the tire strategy differences, put everybody on a fuel save program. But that is part of IndyCar racing, right? And we saw who was better at saving fuel, taking care of the alternates. So I thought it was exciting if you knew what you were watching, for sure. Not a lot of wheel to wheel, banging and passing, but it was still good.
Well, there was some passing, and I think I thought Texas was one of the better races they've had there in years, because they finally got some of that gunk that NASCAR needs off, so they could pass in the corners. They could actually run 2 wide. So I thought it made a huge difference race, but I was surprised when they did after qualifying, I guess it was, they had them run high. They didn't run as high as I thought they would. But of course, if you get too high, you say hello to the fence.
Yeah, exactly right. You don't want to go much higher than that there, especially with everything they've done to that track. But no, it was a combination of you not having that NASCAR stuff on the pavement, which is huge. That second lane practice, getting the drivers a little bit more comfortable going up there and even trying it, putting some rubber down. And then also just showing up with more downforce. We've tried for so many years to stay away from pack racing, and a lot of drivers think that maybe we went too far for too long and made it just too hard to follow and too hard to pass. Now they're kind of finding that happy medium, and I thought Texas was a great race. You got to remember, the end looked like a pack race and kind of like this crazy frantic sprint to the finish, but a couple laps before that, there were only 2 cars in the lead lap.
Yeah.
So it's not like we had a pack race at all. When you have new tires and everyone's got a 10-lap sprint, just like 2016, which was the last good race we had there before they paved it and kind of ruined everything. So I think it's a kind of, we got kind of the best of 2 different kinds of races there. It was nice.
It's amazing. I saw an interview with Romain Grosjean, and he said he knew when they pitted in Long Beach, 1 lap early, he knew he was in trouble because he had 130 push to pass, but he couldn't use them because he didn't have the fuel to last. And 1 lap makes that big a difference.
Yeah, it's huge. And when you're saving that amount of fuel, they really don't like you hitting the button. So it's so frustrating from inside the car because you've got this nice fat number, 131 seconds or whatever it was, and you're so tempted, but it absolutely guzzles fuel. And so you can hit it if you want, but it's just you're gonna have to pay for it later.
Yeah, it's amazing that how much strategy plays into these races. They've got the speed, they've got the safe cars now, they got safer barriers. I mean, very seldom does a driver get out and they got to carry him out and keep him alive. But strategy is everything: gas, fuel, fuel strategy, tire strategy, and they design the tires to last X amount of time. So when you change tires, you fuel at the same time. That's kind of slick the way that operates.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah, well, that's
sometimes. The tires are too good and you could keep running on them if you had more fuel. And sometimes, especially on some of the ovals, we saw it a little bit in Texas. We're going to see it in Iowa, where the cars don't last a full fuel stint because setup's not great. You're burning your whatever end off, and you're going to have to pit for tires. So it's kind of a nice balance. I think on the road and street tracks, as long as you have a big difference between the reds and the blacks in terms of lap time, a big delta, the racing usually ends up pretty good because at some point you're going to be on that worst tire, whichever one it is that weekend, and that usually leads to good racing. But the other thing I'm really excited about this year is we're trying alternate tires on an oval for the first time. So at Gateway, they're actually going to have the alternates, which I can't wait to see how that. Well, that's going to be one of those days where I'm glad I'm in the booth. Let's put it that way, because there's so many unknowns about doing that on the ovals. I'm excited to watch.
Well, you've got the perfect seat to watch.
I've got the second best seat in the house.
Who's got the first?
The one's in the car.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Should have thought of that, I guess. Are you able to see, and you're sitting in a booth looking at, usually the main straightaway. Of course, before the race, you're wandering everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
you wander over and you interview people and you get different views of the race. In Long Beach, you were in that hairpin standing there. You
Yeah.
reach out and wanted to high five the drivers as they went by.
Yeah, jerks didn't do it. I was kind of hurt.
But do you like being able to, before the race, go out and travel around, go to hospitality, go to different places and see people and talk to people? And what are you here for and how do you like?
Yeah, I mean, my job outside of the sessions really is walking around the paddock, running into people, having conversations with whether it's drivers, engineers, team owners, strategists, mechanics, doesn't matter. I'll talk to anybody that's kind of floating around the paddock, and that's sort of how I fill my time in between sessions, and it just gives you all these little tidbits, little bits of information that can come up during the broadcast and make it sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Can you see, watching on television when the car's out in front of you, can you see, I mean, I watch and they say, look at it, he was going sideways. I didn't see him going sideways. You or Townsend did, but I didn't see it. Can you pick that stuff up from the booth?
We, in all honesty, all right, here we go. A little inside Hollywood information here, okay?
Oh boy, oh boy.
We're up in the booth. I would say half of the races we have an okay view of the track itself. A couple of the races, we can't even see the racetrack out of the booth. But even if you can, the golden rule is you have to just watch the screen. Because if we see something out of the window and react to it, but that's not what's being shown on the screen, it's very confusing for the people at home. So even when we can see the track, we have to kind of ignore it. So if we're calling something that we see, it's because we saw it, on the screen, not in person.
So in other words, when I'm watching on Peacock and watching and listening to you, you're looking at the same thing I am, except
100%.
mine's here.
100%. Exactly right.
Now you do some work with IMSA. How do you like that?
It's great, man. I mean, it's from a broadcasting standpoint, it's such a unique challenge because you have so many cars on track. You have 3 to 4 drivers per car, because I only do the long races, right? So it's 3 to 4 drivers per car. That's a lot of stuff I need to know. And I pride myself with the IndyCar broadcast of having a very good understanding of each and every driver, their history, their statistics, all that sort of stuff. I study a lot of these things. And when you go to IMSA races, you kind of have to accept, well, you're not going to be able to do that, right? Like I drove myself nuts the first year I did Daytona, trying to memorize as much as I could. Irrelevant. One of the most fun parts of it, though, is right before the race, all the on-air people will get together and we'll go through the entire entry list, which is like hundreds of names when it's all said and done. And we're like, okay, how are we going to pronounce this one? Right? Like if there's one that's kind of quirky or something new and he doesn't have a normal, and nobody knows for sure. Like we rely on Calvin Fish a lot for that one because he knows a lot of these guys. And so like, all right, Uncle Cal, how do you say this one? And we'll have to write it down so you make sure that we're all, even if we're saying it wrong, we all just want to say it the same so we're consistent across the group. But no, yeah, the IMSA races are a blast, man. It's a fun paddock. The races are always entertaining. And it's fun having like stints as a broadcaster. Like we don't do 24 hours straight, you don't do 12 hours straight, you break it up. So you have your stints where you're on air, then you go back and you eat and you maybe lie down or whatever you got to do, then you're back on. It's kind of fun.
Any offers to be one of 3 or 4 drivers at an event?
Yeah, there have been. It's been frustrating, if I'm honest with you. The sports car world is way more political than I realized it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I thought open wheel was bad. Sports cars is just awful. And I was talking to Ericsson and Pelot and a bunch of guys that couldn't even get rides for the 24 this year, and you look at guys like myself or Hunter Ray, trying to get something more permanent in sports cars, can't get it done. It's a really interesting landscape, and I won't get into the nitty-gritty, but I've had a lot of conversations and a lot of really close deals that were right there, and then something happens last minute and some politics play, comes into it, and my helmet stays on the shelf. For now. We'll figure it out.
Does your wife have to dust it, or is she too busy recording or making movies? You got to dust it yourself.
Yeah, I don't let anybody touch these.
Okay.
These are prized possessions.
This is a helmet that he wore, Hinch wore, I think, 2008?
2008, yeah.
And he drove for my guest from last program, sitting right here, John Bruner, who, by the way, I got a lot of comments on this.
You had him as a guest on the show?
Yeah.
Man, you were really scraping the bottom of the barrel, huh? Quiet week. It's not fair. It's not even looking.
and I knew that, and I knew something was up with the driver. And I said, "Are you going to be, are you going to participate in the 500?" And he said, "I can't. No, we can't right now." He couldn't say anything. Well, then 2 days later, they announced they are. And I got emails. "Well, you dummy, he wouldn't tell you." No, he would have told me, but they hadn't signed the contract for an engine. And the car's, strange as it sounds, and as long as I've been around, they don't run real well without an engine.
Not great. Not great.
And to see 8 crewmen pushing it, it's not going to work.
No.
Do you ever get comments on the runner-up and Dancing with the Stars?
All the time, Don.
Really?
All the time. Usually from Elio.
I was going to say Elio.
That smart Alec put his mirror ball trophy on the back of his helmet even. So like we see it every weekend. He's got his Borg, baby Borgs, his Rolex 24s, and his mirror ball trophy right there on the back of his helmet. Nerve of that guy.
What do you think of the incoming crop of young drivers? It appears to me that the Road to Indy program is doing as it should and bringing some class talent up, moving up. Now what we need, and I guess one of them is wanting one more race, Tony Kanaan, so that would open something for somebody to get in. But it would show this past weekend when Kyle Kirkwood, in his second or third race, he won.
Yeah, third race with the team. It's only second year in the series. It's massively impressive, right? And you go back a couple years, Colton won his third ever race, or maybe it was his fourth ever race, whatever it was. And Pato's obviously a championship contender. David Malukas, I think, had an incredible season last year and is a huge bright star for the future of this series. So the future is great. The future is going to be great. And you're right. I think the Indy Next series. The Indy Lights series deserves a lot of credit. Indy Next hasn't done anything yet, actually. So Indy Lights, when it was Lights, deserves a lot of credit and the teams and everything. And it's not just drivers that are moving up, right? We're seeing teams move up. We've seen Juncos come in. Able Motorsports is going to be running a car in the 500, which is a big deal. So it's great to see that it's not just a vehicle for drivers. It's mechanics, engineers, and teams and owners as well.
A lot of times, and most teams that I've talked to, they'd like to run. There were several want to run a second car this year. 2 problems. One is they couldn't get an engine. And the second problem, crew. To get a good crew together. And if you think somebody can come out of high school and decide to become a mechanic, it doesn't work. It takes a lot of work and a lot of educating and work your way up to it, because this is a very technical sport.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of situation that the sport is in right now, because we've got a people crisis. We've got a people shortage, and there's no shortage of teams, there's no shortage of drivers. There seems to be enough money to run 27 full-time cars this year, which is just incredible. The problem is engines, which is partly tied to people, and crew, like you say, which is a people problem. I might be in the minority, but I know I'm not alone in thinking that the solution to this problem is I think we have to cap the grid. And I already see you upset about this.
No, I'm not. I agree with you.
The whole thing for me is twofold. First of all, you create value for the teams that are on the grid if there's a limit to how many cars can run. Right, we're seeing this unfold right now in F1 in a big way. It really transformed NASCAR when they came up with the charter system and had a certain number of cars that were allowed or guaranteed at least into the races. And so I think if you want some of these teams to actually be able to create some value as businesses and maybe even, I don't know, don't fall over here, turn a profit one day. It needs to happen. It needs to happen. And the other side of it is purely safety. Some of the racetracks that we go to, you cannot have that many cars in pit lane. Frankly, I think we're overdoing it at certain tracks at 27. And I know that's not something I'm supposed to say publicly, and IndyCar's probably going to yell at me for saying it, but I flat out think some tracks are dangerous with 27 cars in pit lane. So,
and I thought St. Pete was one of them.
That's not one of them.
I know,
that's the best part. You think of Mid Ohio, you think of even Barber's going to be tight this week. You think of did I say Mid Ohio?
Yeah, you did.
Mid Ohio, Toronto, Barber. Yeah, Mid Ohio, Barber, Toronto. Yeah, Toronto. I mean, Toronto's. We have to pit one car on the other side of the racetrack. I think we would have 2 pit lanes. Detroit, we actually do have 2 pit lanes because we need them. So it's an interesting problem that. It's great that the series is healthy, but I do think at some point we have to sort of manage the situation a bit.
Well, start bumping. They used to bump. You allow so many in the race.
100%.
And bump
100%.
out.
You share pit boxes during practice, and you have to actually qualify for a street race.
Yeah.
I'm down for that. I think that's awesome.
And when I came in, which was before you were born, they used to do that. They did only allow X number of cars, and it was. I came to the Speedway the first time, if I'm not mistaken, there was close to 100 cars entered. Now, the second or third year I was there, Jim Hurtubise entered 2 cars. He had to put one of them. He had to have somewhere to put his beer. So you open up the hood of the car and it was full of beer.
Smart man.
Yeah.
I wish we still had hoods.
Yeah. Well, I got to know him quick. It's interesting, I think, and my next guest, it's strangely next week, is I'm going to ask because Benjamin Peterson T-boned DeFrancesco in St. Petersburg,
Yep.
coming around the corner, and he had nothing to do but bam. And I kind of was concerned, did they hit the yellow quick enough? Apparently it happened so fast they couldn't have done it anyway. And he may not have seen the yellow because he was looking to get around the corner. I don't know, but that was a disaster. Put a lot of cars out. A lot of money spent, and have taken back and put them back together next week.
Yeah, DeLauro was happy.
Oh yeah, parts and pieces sailing out the door. How do you think? How do you like the new car?
What new car? We've had a new car since 2012.
Well,
What
they
are you
got
on
new
about?
parts and pieces on it, the
Oh.
wickers and so forth. To try
Oh, you
and-
mean like at the Speedway?
Yeah, yeah.
Or in general? I mean, they
the
don't have any
Speedway.
big changes this year, but yeah, at the Speedway, they've added downforce like they did at Texas. And I don't know who watched along for all 8.5 hours on Peacock that Diffey and I were up in the booth calling practice day, calling the open test.
I did.
Appreciate you. But yeah, I thought it looked a lot better. I thought, most importantly, cars further back than, third in line seem to be able to set up a pass. And I think this car has some fundamental problems at the Speedway. Certainly since we added the aero screen, just in terms of weight distribution and how the tire behaves and certain things like that. So I think the underlying characteristics are still the same as what we've had the last few years, but the downforce, it's just sort of halves the problem. So I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, and I think we're going to see a better race this May as a result.
You don't think the air, when you're following somebody getting a dirty air, it's not going to be as bad as it used to be?
Correct. I think you'll be able to follow closer, and so you'll just be able to have those better runs into 1 and 3.
There's something. What is it about the Speedway? Now I started coming here again before you were born in 1962 or 3 or somewhere in there, and some of the stuff I've seen over the years, and now I live here, and still I drive by it and I go, ooh, it's a Speedway. What is it about that place? It just blows your mind.
I wish I knew how to answer that question
So do I.
logically, because you try to explain it to people, and it's just like you say, people that have been going there for 60 years, and they still have that same feeling when you
Yeah.
drive under the tunnel or you drive by it. There's just something about it. It has its own energy. It's impossible to explain to someone without just having them go there and see it and experience it for themselves.
We had a granddaughter, Sharon's granddaughter came and ran that mini marathon. Part of it, and one of the reasons she came is to get to run around the Speedway.
Yeah.
So she came and ran it, and I said, how was it? That Speedway's big.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
it is.
big.
It is quite big.
The biggest.
Yeah, it's amazing what that place has.
Yeah.
What do you see coming in the future? What do you think they're going to do? You think they'll increase, put more ovals in? Roger keeps saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely room on the schedule for another oval. I would love to see that. A lot of debate over which one, and let's not get into a fight tonight, guys. We're all having a nice evening. But I mean, for me, international races, I really think we need to start. We used to race in Mexico, we used to race in Japan, we used to race in Australia, we used to race all over the world, and this sport, this series is so popular. We have a grid that's made up of, drivers from like 12 different countries, and we race in 2. And it's not through lack of interest. I know that there are countries that would love to host the race. I get that we had some things we had to fix here at home before we were in a position to do that, but I feel like now we're in that position. So number one for me, I would love to see some races overseas. We've got a super popular, super successful race-winning, championship contending Mexican driver. not hard to go hold a race in Mexico. They'd fall over to make that race happen. I'd love to see another race in Canada. I'd love to go back to Australia, to Japan, go to Europe, go to the Middle East, whatever. I think there are a lot of cool opportunities. And then I want a new car. I want a new car so bad. I might come out of retirement if there's a new car.
Now, you have never officially retired.
No, I have not. I would come out of full-time retirement if there was a new car.
I think there's several ovals. I know I've been told that Kentucky, they can't race there anymore. They got all these trailers full of Ford stuff and Amazon. That's not true. We were down there a month or so ago, and there's only a couple of vehicles in there and a few scattered around, and they want to come back. Chicago wants to come back.
I would love that.
I would like to see Kansas City, because they got a casino on property now, so that'd be kind of neat. End the day and go lose money. How can you go wrong there?
That's true. Yeah, I'd love to see another mile and a half. I'd love to see Milwaukee come back.
There's talk about that too.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors about that. So there's usually when that many people are talking about it, there's something to it. So we'll see.
And of course, there was a rumor last weekend that Liberty Media was going to buy Roger Penske and Penske Entertainment out, and that was kibosh real quick.
I promise you that's not going to happen. There's 0% chance of that.
I wouldn't think so. What do you think of the Speedway? What do you think of the improvements that Roger's made?
Oh, I mean, amazing. I mean, the place looks incredible, and every year there's something new popping up. Even this year we had Doug Bowles on the broadcast during the open test to explain some of the new things that have been added for the fan experience, some new TVs and things like that. And I mean, that's what Roger's all about, right? Is the fan experience at the track, and I think it looks great. I think every fan that I've spoken to has liked the adjustments and the improvements that they've made. So, I think it's in great hands, and they're doing a great job with it.
And it's almost nowhere now. I know I watched that interview, and Doug was saying, was it the fourth turn, where people could sit, but there was no TV camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Screen, and they got one now.
Yeah.
Roger put one there, so now you can see what's happening behind you.
And that's what's so cool is he listens to the feedback from the fans, right? It's the most important part of the show is the people sitting there watching it. So it's great to see them take that feedback and apply it and put their money where their mouth is, so to speak.
Do you agree with him not running the Freedom 100?
I do not.
Neither do I.
I don't know one person that does.
Well, there's probably 3 here that might. No, I guess not.
Hands up if you don't think we should run the Freedom 100 for the Indy Lights series on Carb Day.
Yeah, I slip once in a while too, and I hear there's teams.
Oh no, it's not a slip. It's very intentional.
Yeah, I know.
It's the dumbest name for a race I've ever heard.
Well, I have.
But yes, I don't know why he does that, and I don't agree with it.
And the fact that he only wants to run one race on the oval, and that's IndyCar. I don't think there's anything else running.
No, there's not. I mean, we had obviously the NASCAR race for a long time.
Yeah.
The problem was it sucked.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was an aversion to running the oval for any prestige of the oval sake. I think the road course race is a more entertaining race for the NASCAR. So I actually endorse that, and I love that doubleheader weekend. I think that's a cool thing that we do in August, having both series there. So that's fine. That doesn't bother me. But Indy Lights Indy Next, what do you want to call it, should do it.
Well, if you're with a team, there's occasion if you say that you have to put a quarter in the swear box. And I think
John, do you guys have that rule?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. That's funny. Well, I tell you what. I think I'm sure everyone here, without exception, would love to see you back in a car.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
I mean, let's face it, you're a 2-time fan favorite. You're a Rookie of the Year. You sat on the pole at the 500, which not that many people in the world can say, I was on the pole, especially after you limped out of the year before. You came back.
Limped, that's generous.
Yeah.
I was dragged out of the track the year before.
Yeah, but fortunately, and you have to say, in my opinion, probably the best safety team in the world is what IndyCar has, because they knew immediately what's your problem and saved your life.
100%. There's no argument there. AMR safety crew and everybody that's ever done that job for us in the INDYCAR series is those are the true heroes, and I really do mean that. It's incredible what they do, and a situation like mine is such a good case study because there's no protocol for that, right? That never happened before. There was no rule book to follow in that situation. They all just use their experience, thought on their feet, and that's the only reason that I'm here today. So,
Well, fortunate you are.
fortunately, I am.
And your wife would agree with you?
Well, what day are we talking? I mean, did I take the garbage out? Is it Wednesdays? Because then maybe not if I forgot to take the garbage out.
Well, I know everyone here would love to see you back. I enjoy listening to you. I think your explanation of what's going on and what, you say something and the next lap around I look and oh yeah, he's right. That you can see what's happening in the car and tell me, because even though I've been around 60 years, I've never driven one. I sat in and drove it steered it onto the pit lane, but that's as far, and I got to polish it and clean the dirt out when I went off course on a road course. That was kind of neat. So, you get the feel of what it's like to drive, and I think you're doing a great job with it.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate
What do you think? You think he's doing it?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think there's a gentleman standing by the door of the room that's going to be on the podium this weekend at Barber. What do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised. I want to thank you for your time, and unfortunately for you, I know how to get a hold of you from time to time when you're available.
Absolutely,
I'll
sir.
chat
Happy
you
to do
again.
it. Glad to be back. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, everybody.
Don't forget your helmet.
I won't.
My next guest is on his way up, and I think you'll be very interested to see this gentleman. I did an interview with him at the Uncros Hollinger shop in the lobby, which was really exciting. And since then, he's kind of booming along rather well. He's on a second season with Uncros Hollinger Racing. He is starting to show progress, although I think the first laps last week at the Speedway aren't to his liking, but he's coming on board. He's from Formula One. He's driven for the Ferrari Driver Academy and been a test driver for Ferrari. He's been a test driver for Alfa Romeo in Formula One. He ran the FIA Formula 2 series. He got 3 wins and 5 poles, so he knows how to win. So he's here in his second year, and he's doing much better. Please welcome Mr. Callum Illot.
Thank you for having me.
I watched the interview that you did at the Speedway after you had trouble with your car.
Which one?
I think the first one probably. And it was quite extensive, and it was interesting to listen to you, how you're talking about it. And I've been around long enough to know that when you drive down the straight, your hands are supposed to be to the right, and when you go to turn, it turns the car. And you were just the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a mystery for us. We spent the whole day trying to find a solution to it without a conclusion, really, by the end of it. And they always tell you, the veteran drivers tell you, as soon as you're uncomfortable, something's not right. And I wasn't comfortable in the morning, and I definitely wasn't comfortable in the afternoon. So I ended up doing a few runs in the morning, and we were kind of finding our feet, but it just wasn't going well. Then made some changes, and it only went in a worse direction in the afternoon, and I could barely go in and out without scaring myself.
Now, you've driven Formula One cars, several of them, and they're hand-built and they're completely different. I understand they have far more downforce. How hard is it to change from Formula One cars to come to INDYCAR?
Yeah, I mean, the Formula One car is just, it is an engineering masterpiece in a certain way. I don't know, a kind of dream in its own to drive. So smooth, very easy in a certain sense. Being so fast, you have to be so precise with it, which is its own technicality. But yeah, it's so smooth, and it just encourages you to push and push and push. And a car that I've never, push until it bites. But I've never been in a car that is like that. And yeah, the downforce is incredible, the mechanical grip is incredible, and the power is incredible. But what was actually closer to the IndyCar was the Formula 2. It's just out here, yeah, it's a little bit more power, a little bit more downforce, and the tyres are the biggest difference. The fact that you can slide on them here it's incredible, and makes for great racing and a great car to drive, whereas in Europe that was not the case.
How did you get from Formula One to here? Did Ricardo just call you up out of nowhere, or have you been talking with him? And what made you want to come over here to run?
Look, I finished second in Formula 2 in my 2020 season, and 2021 was a bit of a discovery year. So I was test driver for Ferrari, I was reserve driver for Alfa Romeo in Formula One, and I was racing in GTs for Ferrari. So I did Le Mans, I did some other endurance events, and then I was on holiday, and Ricardo had been searching for my manager, and I get this call one day from my manager whilst I'm trying to enjoy my holiday. There's a very enthusiastic Argentinian who wants to have a chat with you about a project he's doing in INDYCAR. He's won a lot in the junior series in the US, and would love to have you, as you're a young guy, and he wants to explain it. So then, I hopped on a call the next day, and he spent 55 minutes of the hour that we had trying to explain to me what was going on, and I kind of got the idea and signed up to it.
Are you glad?
Of course I'm glad. It kind of gave me a massive project in the end. We built that up from scratch, and it's going quite well. Obviously there's always areas to improve, but yeah, it's crazy the journey that I've had and been on. I mean, I was an Englishman living in Italy for 4 years. I then got the call and came over here, so I upped myself and just went for it. And at 24 years old, I can say I've driven a variety of cars across a variety of different continents, countries, and that's a cool journey.
When you came here, you obviously knew, I'm sure Ricardo somewhere in 55 minutes said, by the way, we run ovals. What was your thought the first time you went on an oval?
Look, everyone from Europe is not a big fan. Simple as, the risk versus reward is too high for most Europeans. My view of it, after speaking to a couple of people, was that until I try it, I really can't say anything. And I got my first outing at Texas. My first words when I came in was, whoever came up with this idea is stupid. And still to this day, I think that. But it was a journey last year. I mean, Texas was a discovery process for me. We crashed in Indy, and I broke my hand in that crash. And then I arrived in Ira and Gateway, and I started to kind of understand the process of it and what oval racing means. It's all right, you can go. Don't worry. Take your time. Were you like this on track? That's like.
Why do you think I do want to do that?
I'm joking. I got there, and it just started to develop. So that was where it clicked for me, learning from the short ovals and getting to feel the car in a more compact way, and then we came back to Texas, and it was already a step better this year after having learnt it. Indy was a different story, but we kind of know the areas we need to improve on that. But yeah, the ovals are an adventure, that's for sure.
What's it like when you, say at the Speedway, you come down into turn 1 or into turn 3, and you're going 230 miles an hour, and you look at your mirror, and there's a guy right there?
Yeah, it's that's another thing, the spotters. I'm not used to that. So the extent of a spotter I had in Europe was for Le Mans, where you had a guy just looking at the radar and would tell you they're 50 meters behind, 20 meters behind, 10 meters behind, and what kind of car it was. Here, you're using that as your spatial awareness, and it becomes an extra extension, like another set of eyes. And that took a while for me to adjust to. It took a while to understand and to build a relationship with my spotter, or spotters for the 500. But yeah, it's not nice, because it's hard enough to keep yourself moving 1 inch to the left and 1 inch to the right. Having to do that with a guy on the inside of you or on the outside, and they've got to do the same you've got to have some trust in these crazy people, which is not easy to do if you've seen some of us drive.
Well, I've seen some of you guys back in the hospitality area when they filled Connor Daly's pool up with stuff. So what's it like now? When I followed Formula One, early when I started this program in the 60s, I'd go to Formula One races. Actually, I'd fly over to Europe and see them. And the drivers now, then they didn't talk. Now it's even worse. Well, how do you like coming here where all the drivers are friendly? For the most part. I'm sure there's somebody, but for the most part, the guys hang out. They go out to get dinner together.
Yeah, I mean, Formula One's a very corporate media marketing environment, and you have to be trained in it. That's the thing, and you're protecting manufacturers, you're protecting teams, you're protecting all the sponsors. So it's very, very. If you can say nothing, you don't say anything at all. That was how we were trained. If you can answer yes or no, you answer yes or no. And it's not what people enjoy, but you have to understand that that's kind of the way it works, and everyone's brought up to that way. When I came out here, it's a lot more open, it's a lot more easygoing. Obviously, we're all friendly, and I think that's the thing. People are allowed to joke, they're allowed to criticize, and it's for the better of everything. But in the same way, we're all trying to bring as much attention and move with the way the world is moving to increase the popularity of the series, because it's got such a great foundation and the racing is amazing. And that's, as a young person, with social media and all of this, it can be your best friend or your enemy, and we're trying to bring IndyCar as big as possible out of that.
Well, I think, to me, one of the advantages to having guys like yourself and Romain Grosjean and Marcus Ericsson is European people are watching more, so that your popularity for the series is growing dramatically over in Europe. When you go home, if you do, I assume you go home from time to time, do you get interviews? People get a hold of you and want to do TV or radio or newspaper articles?
No. Once I left, no one communicated with me.
What, you don't have any fans over there?
No, my fans were reasonably spread out. So, like just to go over my, I don't know how you'd call it, the percentages of where you're followed, because of being in Formula 2. I mean, okay, my highest percentage of followers would be maybe 7 or 10% from the UK, and then my next highest would actually be Brazil with like 6 or 7%, and
really?
Italy again 6 or 7, and then Germany 4 or 5. So for me, it was quite worldwide, and that's the word, demographic of it was very young fans because of the social media push there was from Formula 1 and Formula 2. Here, the radio and the TV. Look, it's not pushed in the UK. I mean, we got on Sky Sports, we got 300 or 400,000 viewers for the 500, which for me seems very good considering it's not marketed in the UK and it's not pushed. Of course, everyone knows what the 500 is, but it's not marketed, and not many of the races are marketed. But yeah, as a driver, I don't know. It was a weird one. Quite quiet when I went back.
Well, it says here, and I saw it, that since you're here, you're looking into American sports. Now, you have football, but we have a different football. Have you picked up on American sports and say, hey, this is kind of fun?
The only one is pickleball. It's the least, how would you say,
strenuous,
in danger to your body kind of thing. I don't think I'm built for American football. Maybe in another life, but
So you enjoy swimming, climbing, and building remote cars?
Remote control cars, the little RC cars.
Do you have a bunch of them here, and do you race them around here somewhere yet?
I did a little bit last year with Chris Wheeler, one of the spotters, Felix Rosenquist as well. But it's taken it's been a slow year for that. I've been focusing on the real driving.
There you go. Do you and the thing that's worked in IndyCar racing is the driver teammates will communicate. Here's what I had when I went out. This is what you need to look for or adjust or something. Do you and your co-driver trade what you've seen when you've been on the track and what to look for?
Yeah, of course. You have you have pre and post meetings, debriefs, all of that sort of stuff where as a team, not just as drivers, you're discussing and trying to get the best out of your car and the best out of the team. So yeah, of course, it's a pretty standard thing. Of course, some things as a driver you're not always going to share because they're in your back pocket for qualifying, but to get the best out of the car, that's definitely something that you're always pushing for.
What's it like driving for Ricardo?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a very hard-working, overworking, enthusiastic, sometimes too enthusiastic man. But he puts his heart into everything, and he's trusted me from day one to help and shape and build this team, and I respect that a lot, and I respect him a lot.
When he had the grand opening of his race shop, I got invited, and I walked in there and looked around, and he came over and said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, two things. One is you don't have enough trophy cases to start with, and number two is I've got socks that I wear that I've had longer than you've been in this country. I couldn't afford the front door." It's quite a nice shop he's built there and done a bang-up job, and he seems to know, like a number of team owners, how to find drivers that know how to drive cars.
Yeah, he's got a good eye for it, and I don't know whether that was because some people kind of singled into the US and Canada or South America and just singled that out as drivers, but he was straight over to looking at Europe and what drivers he could take out of Europe, and he found me there, and then he also found Augustine, who's been a great surprise to us, from Argentina as well, and I don't think anyone else would have looked there. That's the thing. It's when you broaden your horizons and you understand people and you trust people and you take risks. I mean, this guy's built what he's done because he's taken risks. I mean, he came here with nothing, was sleeping on garage floors, and has built an INDYCAR team.
Yeah, it's amazing. He came here with just some change in his pocket, and look where he is today, and it's less than 20 years. And I've been here all my life, and I couldn't buy the front door. Something went wrong somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, they are big, heavy doors.
Yeah,
I've hurt myself opening them a couple of times. But.
Do you do a lot of sim work, or you just play video games?
No, we don't have access to a simulator, so that's another thing we haven't been able to build too much off the track, if you know what I mean. I know the how would you say it? The bigger teams and that they're probably quite full on that side. We haven't been able to. It's been more circumstantial and situational. What's strange for me is going from being paid to do that in Europe and drive these simulators all the time to coming here and basically not having access to one. It's a bit strange, but it's all right.
Delara has one. Can't you go down there?
Yes, but it's not that simple. It doesn't work like that. It's we could have a simulator here, but it has to be. You'd have to spend days and days and days and days and have the people and the time to be able to put all that effort in. It's like, I will simplify it. So the top teams are running using wind tunnels, right? And it's a very expensive thing to do on a day. Well, even if you gave us 5 days on the wind tunnel and we could do it, it would take us years with the team that we have to go through and analyze all the data that we have, and we wouldn't really be able to even implement it because we don't have the resources, time and people basically to solve that and to come up with the numbers from it. And that kind of relates to the simulator, but for example, with any project you have to be on it constantly and consistently, and we don't have access to that, and it's just a complicated area, which there's a few confidential things that I can't really go into why, unfortunately.
Well, that's all right. Are you planning on staying here and running INDYCAR? Because it seems to me, if you're not one of the top 3 teams in Formula One, you're just there to kind of fill the field. Whereas here, you've got a chance to win. There's 15, 18 cars that any given Sunday can win.
Yeah, look, the problem is, as a young driver in Europe, you're trained and built to want to go to Formula One. There is like no other option. You have to look at going there, and the thing that most drivers look for is to go into, yes, one of the smaller teams, and you'll be lucky if you finish in the points. But you keep turning up year after year, and then one day you get that contract from the bigger team, and then you get your chance to win. And it's a long process on that side, but it was at one point where I had to accept that that's maybe not something I'd like, because it's hard enough to get into Formula One, and something I failed to do. but it's even harder to stay in it, and it's even harder to get that opportunity there. And I'm not going to sit there wasting my time trying to hope for a seat when I could go somewhere and do what I do best, which is drive fast cars, and race them. And I got this opportunity, and it was more than just an arrive and drive opportunity. It was arrive, build the team, drive, and then one day we'll try and win when we get that opportunity. And yeah, it's been a project which I don't think many drivers have on their CV at all, especially at the age of 24.
Well, obviously, according to Ricardo, when I've talked to him, it's worked very well with you. And you have helped build the team and get the people. And I don't think a lot of people understand how important your engineer is, because you guys got to be on the same page. You got to tell him something, and he looks at the pressure, the temperature on the tire, and if it matches what you say, you're off and running.
Yeah, it's like that with the engineer, and it's like that with the whole team. You have to be symbiotic in the sense that you all know how to improve. You all know each other's temperaments and weak points, and that's a learning phase. You have to learn how to get the best out of your engineer. They have to learn how to get the best out of you. And then on that point, I was a driver, I was a development driver, sometimes stepping into a team manager, sometimes even beyond all of that, and making decisions for the team or getting people to group together to make decisions for the team. And that's why it's important, firstly with the engineer, secondly with the owners. We've got Ricardo and we've got Brad, and they have to trust in me that I may be a young whippersnapper, but I know my stuff, and I don't take any BS, as they say. And we're all here to be professional and improve. And yeah, it's been a great relationship, and I respect them, and the people respect me.
Well, the neat thing I found when I worked for race teams, and we had a driver that if he started the 500 and there's 33 cars, if 32 fell out, he still wouldn't win. And as a result, the team didn't give it their all. But when you have a driver that they know can win, you got to give him what he needs to be able to drive it to win. And I think you've got that. I think Ricardo's got a good crew.
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, it doesn't always work like this, but I think the reason he got me and pushed so early to get me was to then try and shape the team around that. So I was one of the first pieces of the puzzle for him, and clearly quite an important one. And he knew that of the people that knew me would want to work around that. And we've slowly expanded the team, and it's not an easy thing to do, but we're growing, and it's nice to see that people are always wanting to push and join a team that's willing to grow like that and put the effort. And yeah, we kicked some big teams' asses last year at some places, and that's super tough to do, especially knowing how much they've got behind it. And sometimes that's embarrassing for them, but that's the job we're here to do.
It's called racing.
Exactly.
And you're there to win. And I think from what I've watched, you're a clean driver. I think that you're still a little hesitant to make some of the moves like Takuma Sato. If you give him an inch, he'll take it, and if it means going in the dirt, he'll do it.
Yeah, but that's well, it's won him a few, and it's definitely lost him a few. So.
Oh yeah, no question. But
I'll learn a bit more first before I start sending it in like him.
But the point being, you're getting to where you realize who the drivers are and what they're doing, and if you got an opportunity, you can pass them and make it happen. And I think it's fun. That's what I look for in racing. And they say, well, and a lot of drivers have said, well, there's no passing in this track. Oh, really? How does somebody come from 32nd to 6th? He didn't get there by taking a shortcut.
Yeah, I think the thing with this though is I'm in a bit of a different scenario. Like I know when I'm in a race or I've done a qualifying where we aren't really in a position to win. We aren't fast enough. Like St. Pete, for example, we went from 20-something to 5th, right? But by being calm and consistent, other people kept putting it in the wall, and oh, thank you, there's another 2 places. Oh, thank you, there's another 2 places. But I was never going to try and make a move on anyone because we weren't quick enough to kind of continue the momentum on that weekend. But the moment I know I'm quick enough, you've got to take the opportunity. You've got to go for it. But we're still. It's much more important for us to take a P5 result right now because of the way the team's growing than it is for me to go for a move on P4 and fail.
Yeah.
That's my mindset at the moment. And the moment I'm in P2 and I can go for that P1 move, yeah, I'm going to send it. But right now, I'd rather take home the points and really start the season off strong compared to last year.
Now, your next time on the Speedway, because during your interview you said, we'll have the car set, we'll be here tomorrow. Well, tomorrow Mother Nature said, no, you're not.
It's a later tomorrow.
Yeah. Did they tear the car completely apart and put it back and find anything so when the track opens, you'll be ready?
The problem is like a process of elimination, which sucks because you're trial and error, which is what we spent the day doing, and we only found errors, which means that there's more to discover, but one less than there was before. And yeah, that was kind of the process. Like we did tear it down and do what we could for the next day, which didn't happen. It then got tore down at the factory or the shop, and we have a couple of important things that are potential possibilities, but there was no answer, right? Because it's not. If it was that easy, we would have found it anyway. So we've got a lot of things that are going to be new and have to be tried anyway. And then there are the contingencies depending on which way this goes from there. And then I would say if by the second day I'm in the same place with all the contingencies that we've used, then I'll start to stress. But right now I'm not so stressed because it's just a process of elimination.
Well, I think that, and one of the reasons I enjoyed the interview we did in the lobby, and people watch it on television. I wanted to get you in so people can see who you are. In fact, shake your hand on the way out if they want. And it's been fun to watch how you've gone up and how you're accepting IndyCar for what it is. Very competitive, very quick, good cars, pretty safe tracks for the most part, and it seems like it's fun.
It's definitely fun. I mean, it's a weird one because it's so intense once you get started. Like, once we do Barber, it's kind of non-stop till about September, and that was quite tough by the end of it last year. I was like, oh, I just want 2 weeks by myself once it was finished. But yeah, the racing is incredible. It's incredible racing, super intense from a driving point of view, a time point of view, a schedule point of view, and then between the drivers there is no stone left unturned. These people are just ruthless. They find your weak spots and they exploit it, which is the fun in it and the challenge. But again, everyone's respectful. I think you can call someone a dick, and they'll say, yeah, probably I was, and you just move on from there, and it's great. And I'm getting used to it. I'm loving it. I wish it was a bit warmer this year so far in Indianapolis because it's not very inviting. Yeah, but yeah, it's great, and it's been a big change in my life and a big journey, and I've enjoyed every step of the way so far.
Do any of your family ever come over and watch you?
No, they've been a little. Well, I've been busy. They've been busy. I think they're coming over for May this year. Then I think Toronto, and then for the last couple as well. So, yeah, it'd be exciting for them. I got a little sister who might come over, might not. I don't know. It's up to her. She wears the pants in the house at 11 years old.
Yeah, that's most houses. That's about right. Well, I know that we all here wish you nothing but the best. You have been fun to watch, and as you're progressing, as you figure out the series and the drivers and the people you're against and so forth and the tracks, it's fun to watch you move up, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for having me.
Callum Illot, you're going to see a lot of him. He's fun to watch. Car 77, and it's green and white. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being, appreciate it. We will be here next week, May the 3rd. I have scheduled guests. My first guest is Derek Daly. I'm assuming you've heard of him. If you want to see what he does, go to his Facebook page. He's got some of the presentations he does. He's a speaker. And it's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Go and watch it. And he'll be here next week. He'll be joined by the guy I was told they weren't going to have in the car entered, R.C. Enerson, as well as Benjamin Peterson. They'll both be here. So we'll be here next week, same time, same place. Until then, thanks for being here. We'll see you again.